Thank you. Thank you. Everyone, good evening. How are you doing today? How are you? Such a pleasure to host you again today. I'm so excited personally, and one of the reasons I'm so excited about today's stream is the fact that the story of our speaker for today is an inspiring one to me, right? Even before we started working together, Uh, just let me know where you're joining us from, first of all, before I go into other story. Let me know where you're joining us from. Um, is this your first time joining a MasteryVerse session? Last week we had, 2 weeks ago, actually, we had a section that was quite interesting that was on mental health, and we had a consultant from the United States who came on to speak with us. And then today we are having Liberty, who is currently in Brazil, doing so much great work. And he's going to be speaking to us today about how he has been able to break some of the limits that he has experienced in life and how he was able to get to where he is today and continue to do great things all over the world. Right, so that's what we're going to be looking at today. But before we look at that, one of the reasons this is quite, I'm expectant. I didn't come here to say, oh, guys, this is the point, this is the point. I came here today to learn, just like you, right? And the reason I came here to learn is because I know how much of an innovator, how much of a pace setter he is, right? And sometimes we think that the challenges that we're going through is peculiar to us. So nobody has gone through it. You're going through so much challenges, and you don't see a way out of it. But when you look around it, I mean, even the Bible says it, that there's no temptation that you go through that is unique to you or that is new in terms of existence, because there are people that have gone through it. But the difference between you and these people is the fact that they were able to go through it with victory. Why some people cower at the face of challenges and they want to give in to the things that is trying to limit their exploits. But when you understand that, oh, the things that I'm going through is not exactly new to me, it's not exactly something that no one anywhere in the world has gone through, it gives you an understanding that if someone somewhere had gone through it, overcame it, maybe you're dealing with distractions, maybe you're dealing with frustrations in terms of your result, in terms of the things that you're doing and the result that they are bringing to you. And then you will just worry if it's peculiar to you, if you're not making enough progress. Well, there are people that have experienced that same feeling, but they got over it. They got over it to the other side of their genius, to the other side of their potential. And that is what we're going to be learning today, right? I'm quite excited for this section. So please, wherever you're joining us from, I see some of us already joining. Wherever you're joining us from, please share this link with your community members on your WhatsApp status, on your Instagram story, wherever you can share it. Let's get as many people, especially young people who are living in third world Africa, Nigeria, who are going through one challenge or the other. They're thinking about, I mean, the year is coming to an end. And so many people are thinking of the things that they've not accomplished in this year. We have less than 50 days to the end of, well, about 50 days to the end of this year. And so many people are thinking about the things that they have set out to do since the beginning of this year that they've not been able to do, right? And it's going to push some people into frustration. It's going to push some people into low energy. It's going to push some people into desperate ventures and this kind of things, right? But today we're going to be learning how can you make the most of the remaining days of this year, breaking through all the limitations that is confronting you. Maybe you've dealt with this limitation since January, right? But today we're going to be learning how can you maximize the things that you have. There is something my mentor John Obede used to say. He said that make use of what you have, for what you have is enough. How can you identify the things that you have that is enough to give you the result that you desire, or how can you identify the leverage that you need in order to be able to make new advancements in your life. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Our guest for today is already here in the room, and I'm so excited to welcome him because he's not just a friend, guys. He's someone that actually inspires me. And I'm not saying this because he's coming on here, I just want to hype him up. No, it's someone that, since the first time we got to have a conversation, that was way back in 2021. Since that first time, I've watched his life take different upward movement, and he has been so inspiring to me. And I just got him. Okay, this story, please come share with my community members. It would be so good to have them listen to how you've done so many good things that you've done. And that's why we're having today Liberty. He's going to be speaking to us for about 40 minutes, and then we're going to be having questions. You want to ask questions. Maybe you're looking at shifting career, you're looking at taking some new steps, you're looking at changing the direction of your the things that you're doing. You want to have ask a couple of questions from the things that he's going to be talking about. You would have the opportunity to do that at the end of this session. So please just let us know where you're joining from. We have Andy, Victor joining from Lagos. We have Lekon. We have Jeff. We have Wealth from Abeokuta. Thank you so much for joining. Please share the link and tell everyone that we're live. I'm going to run right away and tell our community members. But before I do that, can we just, with a round of applause, digital clapping, can we welcome Liberty to, share with us all the secret of the world that he has learned and how we can apply these things to our lives today. Thank you so much, um, Liberty, for joining. What a pleasure to have you here.
Hello, Gift. Good evening. I think it's evening your time. It's also evening here. How are you doing?
Awesome, awesome. Good evening. Good
Yeah,
evening. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. Very well. It's an honor. It's a privilege to be here. I thank you very much for transforming the lives of young people. I met Gift a couple of years ago, and it's one of those people you see, and you just know that they won't stop. And one of the reasons for that is they are driven, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone is driven, right? And when you meet people that are driven, you can really see it. You can see it from their actions, from their steps, from the things they do, from the way they talk, from the way they make choices, right? And part of that is what we'll be discussing today, actually. Um, Thank you for being a great guy and for being who you are and for making this platform available. I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's get right into it. Hello, everybody. It's going to be sort of an interactive section. I know like people come on here and say, "Oh, I want to," not here, right? People come on stages and say, "Oh, I want to give a speech," or "I am a speaker." I don't think I'm a speaker. I think I have something that is worthwhile to other people, and I want to share that with you. So don't look at me as, oh, one speaker that is going to be speaking one, big grammars and all of that. I'm here to share with you things that have transformed my life over the past couple of years, and I want to share with you the step by step process, right? What I did to take me from where I was to where I am today. And I just want you to give me a few moments, right, of your time. There's this saying that I believe so much: whatever is worth doing is worth doing well. If you're here already, that means you want to be here, right? You actually want to do it, which means that if it's worth doing, just do it well. So I would love to have your attention. Okay. So I can see a couple of people here: Talk with Jov, Andy TV, Faith Olakwe, Oyeyinka. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So we're mostly going to be talking about breaking barriers, right? Renegotiating your relevance. That's a lot of grammar. All right, but yeah, let's break it down to something that can really be useful for us, because work done is zero if you stay on this live stream and then you go back the same. I really want to impact something. I want to impact someone today. I want to say something that would actually touch you and touch your life. And for that to be possible, I'll try as much as possible to break most of the things that I'm talking about down. Okay. Yeah. So let's get right into it. Breaking barriers. Now, before we talk about breaking the barriers and renegotiating our relevance, I think it makes sense to first understand that if you need to break a barrier, you first of all have to recognize that there is really a barrier, right? Um, because if you don't recognize that there's a barrier and then someone is telling you breaking barriers, you're like, okay, what's my business? I don't think I have any barriers to break, right? So, first off, is understanding that there's a barrier. Now, before you even understand that there's a barrier, or you have the notion or the understanding of, having a barrier that you need to break, you also first of all have to understand that, or have a direction, right? You have to have somewhere you're going to. Because if you're not going anywhere, if you're standing in one place, there's no barrier for you, right? If you're just in one place, no, you're not going anywhere, you're not moving, there's no motion, right? You don't have anywhere going. There's no barrier, so no need to, break any barrier. So, which means that for you to break barriers, you have to recognize that first there is barrier, right? And secondly, you are heading somewhere, and then there's a barrier you need to break to be able to get to where you want to get to, right? Please, if you can hear me, just put in the comment section so I know. So we're not having any technical issue. I just want to be sure that everyone is here before everyone can hear me clearly before we get right into the crust of the matter. Right? So you have to understand that you're going somewhere, and you have to have somewhere that you're going for you to recognize that there's a barrier. Okay, so yeah, okay, awesome. So how do you so let's take it back a bit. So first, there's a barrier you need to break. You understand that there's a barrier because you're heading somewhere. So where exactly are you heading to? So let's start from there. So let's assume you came to this meeting or this conversation, and you didn't really have any understanding or idea of, okay, what breaking barriers mean, or having understanding or direction for where you want to get to, or the need to break barriers. The first thing we'd have to define is you having somewhere to go to, right? That there's a barrier, there's something, you know, blocking you from accessing where you need to get to, right? And then you need to break that barrier. Now, barriers have different levels, right? Someone who wants to buy, let's say iPhone 6, right? iPhone 16, sorry, that's the latest one. The barrier to getting that iPhone 16 is quite different from someone who wants to liberate a nation. So you now have to define, okay, where exactly am I going to? Because if you don't know where you're going to, you don't even know the kind of barrier that is blocking you from accessing what you need to access. Hope you are following. So for you to be able to break the barrier, so you know where you're going, right? So you need to now break a barrier. For you to break barriers, sometimes you see people just blazing, doing amazing stuff, right? And you want to be like them. You see them doing wonderful stuff, and you're like, how did they get to the point that they are today? And you want to emulate them. You want to uh, have access to what they have access to. You see them on TV and you want to be like them. So the first question is, what is driving these people? Right? Because if you move with a very, velocity that it's a very high velocity, the higher the chances that you can break bigger barriers, right? If you're applying a force to something, the higher the speed and the weight of that thing, of whatever it is you're using to break the thing, if you put that together, that equals the amount of force that can break whatever barrier or whatever it is that you need to break. So first off is velocity, the rate at which you're moving. And you've seen people moving at a very high rate, and you like want to be like them. And you're like, what is driving these people? So let's break it down to the very basics of what is driving people. All right, to get to destination. So remember earlier we talked about moving from where you are, right, to somewhere, and then there's a barrier. And so you see people moving very fast to their destination, and you see them like, oh, I want to be like these people. I'm inspired by them. What is driving them? All right, because it's only when you have a drive that you're able to actually break barriers. And it's only when you have somewhere you're going to that you can have a drive. So how do you get the drive? So let's start from there. How do you get the drive? You get the drive from seeing, you get the drive from perceiving, from knowing that where you are going to is better than where you are currently. Because if you can't see, it is difficult to move. It's difficult to get driven if you are not able to see. So we can say that drive comes from perception. You see something, you see someone, you see a problem, you see a destination, and you want to get there, right? So that's where drive comes from. Because if you don't see it, you can't be driven. You're just existing. If you're not seeing anything bigger than where you currently are, then there's no need to move. There's no drive, right? So where do you get the drive from? Drive from perception. What is perception really? Perception is seeing what other people cannot see sometimes, right? Seeing something peculiar to you, seeing a destination, seeing a possibility. Now, depending on the size of what you can see, then you can decide the amount of velocity that you can use to get there. All right, let's break it down a bit more for that so that I'm not speaking too much grammar. So you have to have a destination you're going to. Let me give you an example, or let me tell you a short story. I grew up in a very, humble, had a very humble background, very, very humble one. People used to say whether you had a golden spoon or a plastic spoon. I tell people I didn't have any spoon. I didn't even have any spoon at all. And today, I think I'm proud of where I am, even though I'm still looking ahead. So how did I get from that very low position to where I am? Like I said, seeing something. Where I grew up at, which is more or less a slum in Lagos, I was living in a barrack, right, on Lagos Island. So if you're living in a barrack, it's still good. I was living in the boys' quarter of a barrack. Okay? Now, most people in where I was staying were either not, they couldn't see outside. I'll explain that a little bit. What they saw was what was revolving around. And I tell people, don't make your location, all right? Don't make your location your physical location, right? Don't make it don't make your environment. Don't make your physical location your environment. Your environment is what is here. All right? Your location is where you are, right? Physically. But your environment is what is here. So most of the people that I stayed with or stayed around were existing in their physical location, and then they made their physical location their environment. So which means that everything they did revolved around what they could see, around their physical location. But what helped me out? Well, I could perceive some things. So while I was there, I had access to a couple of things. So number one was we had a neighbor who would then I would go to their house and they would put this show. There's this show called iCarly. I don't know if you guys know, but those were the shows that we watched then. So all these American teenage TV shows, right? So iCarly and the rest of them, I can't remember them now. So while I was there physically, my mind was somewhere else because whenever I watch iCarly, it was a series sort of, right? So every Saturday or every day you sort of see an episode. So while I was there, I was seeing possibilities. I was seeing the way they interacted with each other. I was seeing um, the way they see the world. I was seeing how they build, how they think, how they interact. Right? I see students with, to me then was, oh, I didn't have any gadgets. So I see students with, taking laptop to school, iPad, and the rest of that. And I just felt like, okay, there's something different, right? There's something different than where I am. There's something unique about these people. That was number one, right? Number two was that I had access to a big church. Mm? So while I was there in that slum, I was on every Sunday and Saturdays, I would go to a big church that is in VI. It was a redeemed church. And that exposed me to another thing entirely, which is every time I go to church, I'm able to see um, the people who call the rich guys, right? The rich people from the neighborhood, because they live there, right? And so they would bring their children to church. I was very young, so I was sharing classes, class with other teenagers. So I was a teens church, and teenagers, my mates, would give offerings of 1,000 naira, right? To me, then 1,000 naira was like feeding for a whole week. But a teenager like me, or even a child, will give that as an offering. And I started thinking, why is someone my age mate able to give this? And I am struggling to give how much? Is it 15 naira? Right? But do they have two heads? So, what am I trying to say? While I was there, I was seeing something different. I could perceive that life doesn't have to be harsh. Life doesn't have to revolve around my physical location. While I was at the slum, I could see that there's something bigger out there, that I could do something more, I could achieve something more. Apart from that, I attended events around there, and I could see people. I could see people my age mate. I could see what they were doing. I could see the kind of schools they attend. I could see the way they reason. I could see the kind of gadgets they use. I could see it. I could perceive it. And I wanted to be there. I wanted to be like them. So for me, that is perception, right? So you could be in your physical location. You could be in a place where you are, right? And it's limiting at this point in time. But guess what? Your mind is still yours. So your environment should be here, even though your physical location is, not giving you what you want at the moment. And most of us are in this case. I mean, we're in this situation at this point in time. Most people that are watching this are probably from Nigeria. So you're like, okay, my physical location is not giving me what I want. But then your mind should be limitless, right? Because you could perceive. So the first thing in defining a goal or having the drive to break through limits is perceiving, seeing differently, opening your eyes, right? So let me give you an analogy. Imagine someone that was given birth to in a pit, and in that pit, since they were given birth to, they've never seen the light, they've never seen the sunshine, right? Now, if they never see the sunshine, they would never understand what the sun is. They would never know that the sun exists, because what they're used to is the pit, and they do not have access. What your eyes cannot see, it's very difficult to get there. If your eyes cannot perceive it, it's difficult. That's why in the Bible, was it David that God was talking? He said, as far as your eyes can see. So the first principle is seeing beyond what is. Okay, Abraham, thank you. Seeing beyond what is available. Understanding that your physical form does not define you. The things that drive are not in the physical. All right? Of course. Okay, let me use the iPhone thing for example again. Someone who wants to get an iPhone and someone who wants to transform the world, do you know the difference between the two of them? One is driven by physical, what they can see, what they can touch, what gives them pleasure. The other one is driven by what they cannot see. What you cannot see, I mean, what you can see can, drive you to an extent, right? But what you cannot see, drive gives you unlimited drive. Because guess what? Even if your body lacks it, your soul, your drive, your spirit, right? It's what gives you the energy to keep going. And if you do not have that, it is very difficult to move past the barriers that are there, to break the barriers. Okay? I think I'm dropping it. Let's take it, step by step. So the first one is seeing. Seeing where you want to go to. So So let's say you have now seen, right? You're now aware. You're no longer in debate. You could now see how the sun looks like. You could see what's on the other side. You could now perceive, right? So the first form of the first rule of transformation has been established. You've seen. You're not a bit different. If you can see 50% of the work is done. Have you ever interacted with people and you're trying to explain what you have in mind and it's very difficult for them to understand? That is it. You can see, they can't. So that's the first thing. Can you see the light? So if you don't have that drive yet, if you cannot see yet, if you cannot see how, what's different, what's unique about you, where it is that you need to go that is different from where you are at the moment, you need information. You need to perceive. You need to read books. You need information. You need education. And education, I don't just mean reading books. I need your eyes to see. I need you to close your eyes and be able to perceive where you want to get to. Where do you want to be in? Not just you alone. What do you want to do? Let me tell you the truth. All the wealthy people you see today did not get wealthy because they want to buy iPhone 16 or they want to buy a flashy car. No. I tell people the flashy things you get are just add-ons. Okay? Where you actually want to get to is not defined by those add-ons. That's why if your focus is on getting the flashy cars, you might never get them. That's why they tell you, don't shoot for the moon, shoot for the stars. You might as well land on the moon, on the sun, but shoot for the stars. Do not be driven, do not limit your perception to the physical. All right? So see beyond what is currently happening within your environment. That is the first step. Now, the second step is playing the game that in such a way that you're playing it from your vantage point. So now that you've seen where you want to get to, how do you get there? First, I also have to define something. So usually people will confuse this with they have to follow their what's it called? Passion, right? Which is true, which is partially true. But if you are from a third world Africa, it's a bit difficult. So there's a problem there because you're not necessarily living yet. And I'll break it down for you. Everyone that is born into a poor home in third world Africa is somehow born into a prison. Not a physical prison, but yeah, you're somehow born into a prison. And you have to understand that. And so you might not be able to pursue your passion first, because if you try to pursue your passion from the prison, nobody would see that. All they will see is your chains. And so first, you have to first of all break those chains off before we start talking about, okay, pursuing your passion, pursuing the things you see. Because if you cannot eat, right? If you can't live, right, without thinking about what will I eat tomorrow, there's no movement. You can't really do anything. I'll be very frank with you. I've been through that. If all you think about every day is how do I get the next meal, right? You have to first of all deal with that. That is called surviving. You need to break through surviving to be able to live. Living is when you start talking about, okay, I can now see beyond. I want to shoot for the stars. Do you get what I mean? But first, you have to understand that you were born into a prison and you have to break out of that prison. Breaking out of that prison is not about passion. It's not about following your passion. It's first of all doing whatever it takes to break out of that, whatever it is that you were born in. It's first of all having to get to a point where you are now able to not think about what you need to eat tomorrow. And I tell people, for you to do that, you might have to break all forms of convenience. You might have to do whatever it takes because, well, that part of you is really not where you're going to. So it's much more easier. Remember, I told you earlier, the bigger, right, the thing that you can see, the higher your velocity. So it's much more easier to break through your barrier, that easy barrier of, okay, what do I need to eat tomorrow? So first could be get a job or start a business or start something, just do something that gives you income. Because you need to first of all break that chain, that place you were born into, where you cannot first of all think about, you can't even think about the next stage of your life without first of all thinking about what you need to eat. So first you have to take care of that problem of, okay, what do I need to eat tomorrow? Now, once that is solved, we can now start talking about, okay, let's start shooting for the stars. Okay? For me, I had to learn a skill. Even though I did not enjoy it, I had to do it. I had to learn web design, right? I had to learn electrical installation. I had to do a lot of things because I knew that I wasn't going to die in that cage. So I need to get out of there first. So first you have to identify, where am I? Are you still in the cage? If you are, break it, right? Get a skill, get a job, you can do it. Because once you can see where you're going to, somehow your spirit is informed. Your soul is informed of how to go around it. And these tips are always there. There's always a voice telling you this is the next step, this is what to do next. And usually what holds you down is whether you're lazy or you're not. And so this time around, it's not about, I'm not passionate about these things, I have to do it. So at this stage, right, if you're still in that cage, you have to first of all um, um, do whatever it takes to break out of it. When you break out of it, we can now start talking about the monkey and the fish story, which I'll break down to you, which is playing the game from your vantage point. Because if you try to play the game from the vantage point while you're still in the cage, it is difficult. Because sometimes your vantage point doesn't necessarily take you out of that cage. Your vantage point could be painting. Maybe that's what you're gifted with. But if you live in third world Africa, painting might not get you out of the cage. Photography might not get you out of the cage. Art might not, but that might be your vantage point. So first you have to break the cage. And then when I can now start discussing, okay, taking the vantage point or the vantage part. So let me break this down. You probably heard the story before where there was a competition and the goal was to climb a tree. And so they invited all kinds of animals. So the monkey was there, the fish was there, and the rest of them. And the goal was who the first person or the first animal that would climb that tree would be. And so, regardless of your capabilities, you were judged by whether you were able to climb the tree first or not. And of course, you all know what would happen in this scenario. The person or the animal that is naturally equipped for the job, of course, is the monkey. Why? Because he evolved to climb trees. So the monkey is playing the advantage game. So imagine yourself to either be the monkey or the fish. And for you to imagine that, you have to understand who you are as a person. Who are you? Right? What are you good at? So many people are playing a game or competing where they shouldn't, where they have no business competing. It takes tons of effort. It takes it's almost impossible. If you're a fish and you're trying to climb a tree, it's almost impossible. Why? Because you're not built for that. And so you have to identify, who am I? What am I good at? For me, I love tech, right? I love to build stuff. I love business. So I had to play the game from the vantage point. I didn't start going for Olympics. I didn't start running. I didn't start um, um, exploring, right? I knew what I was good at. So you have to identify yourself. Who am I and what am I good at? And then play the game from the vantage point. And part of this is you might need to distance yourself. Let me give you another example. If you go to the bus station, this usually happen in Nigeria. You go to the bus station, and usually in the bus stations, um, there are different buses that are going to different destinations, right? Now, if your destination, first, there are people that don't even know where they're going to, and that would be a problem for them. Okay? But let's assume you know where you're going to. You're going to Abuja. If you take a bus going to Abuja, there's a very high chance that the people you meet on that bus would know about Abuja. So you've understood what you're good at. You understand yourself. You know where you're going to. When you get into that bus, instead of keeping quiet, what do? You connect. Because it's most likely there's a very high chance that the people in that bus know where you're going to. They've been there before. So if it's the same competition and you're the monkey, right? So the people climbing the tree or the monkeys climbing the tree have probably done it before. And sometimes you probably do not need to start from scratch. You can move way, way, way faster, leveraging other people's ideas or leveraging other people's knowledge. And that's where leverage comes in. I mean, if you did physics in school, that these things we call simple machines, right? We have the fulcrum, we have what's it called? The knife edge, they have and the rest of them. Now, these things help you to be efficient, right? They help you to do huge work with minimal effort. So you leverage the system to carry a very big load with minimal effort, right? So instead of saying, oh, I'm going to Abuja, I'm just going to keep quiet in my boss. When I get to Abuja, I figure it out. Why not try to leverage? And that's what I did. I started connecting with people. You connect with people that are going to the same destination. Because sometimes the next victory or the next success or the next um, um, breakthrough that you're looking for, it's probably with someone else who is going to the same place you're going to or who has been to where you're going to. So why toil night and day when you could ask questions? And so this is where community comes in. This is where interacting with people comes in. This is where having friends comes in. This is where relationship comes in. So the first one, open your eyes and see. Know where you're going to, right? Because when you see that you're driven, when you're driven, it's easier to break the barriers. And when you see where you're going to, you play the game from the vantage point. Don't be the fish competing with a monkey in climbing a tree. Right? When you do that, you leverage. Use the knowledge of people that have been there, that have done what you're looking to do. Okay? So let's proceed. So the thing with limits is that there will always be limits. It's nature's law. If there were no limits, everybody would be billionaire, everybody would be successful, but everybody cannot be successful. It's impossible. Light only makes sense when there is darkness. When the sun is shining, you put on the torchlight, it doesn't really make any change, right? You don't put on the torchlight when it's day. And so everybody cannot be successful. Success only makes sense if you have to try for it, if you have to work for it. I tell people, if you come from a struggling, from a very low background, it's sort of a privilege. Everything is perception. I tell people that I see it as a sharpening of your tongue, of your taste buds. Okay, assume someone who has, was born into wealth, has been rich all his life, doesn't understand what poverty means. To them, the experiences of wealth do not really make much difference. If they go, take first class in first class in an airplane, the changes are not really much because they've been doing that since they were young. Right? If they buy a new car, it's not really a big deal because there's really no difference. There's no celebration. There's no changing. There's no contrast. There's nothing to compare with, and so it's just dull. It's just that. But imagine someone who has never had that experience before, who might be you in this case, having to experience what it feels like for the first time. So I say it's a privilege because you've experienced both worlds, and nobody can have, you know, a better experience than you who has experienced what it feels like to be poor and to get rich, right? So, yes, not everyone will be rich. The Bible says the poor, all right, you will always have among you. It's a universal law. There will always be people who are not able to see, all right, who will not see the difference, who would not perceive the light, and it's fine, right? But for you that have seen it, there will always be obstacles, there will be barriers. How else do you enjoy that which you've worked for if there are no barriers? How else would you tell stories? So the barriers are needed, but the barriers are not there to keep you off. Mm-mm. People see it differently. People make the mistake of thinking that the barrier that is there to keep them off. No, the barrier is there to ask you, do you really want this? Or you just wish for it? Because there are people that are wishing for it and it's fine, but there is barrier there. There will be that. Look, the gold, I always say the gold must go through the flames of refinement if it needs to be, if it wants to be valued. It must go through the flames of refinement. You must go through the flames of refinement because that is what reveals your value. Have you ever seen someone that just exists and people start clapping for them? Oh, you're so good. Good for what? You have to go through something, right? It's someone that goes through the flame, someone that has run a marathon and came out on the other side that they'll clap for. Wow, you did something wonderful, right? So that is the marathon is the barrier. So it's not that um, it's not that the barriers will not be there. It's not that it will be easy. It's that the barrier will be there, but I am willing to go through the flames of refinement. I'm willing to go through the barrier so that it will be worthwhile, so that I have stories to tell. So in moments when you're contemplating whether this is for you, these problems are getting too much, right? In those moments, think and remember the barrier is not there to stop you. It's there to ask you one question. And that question is, do you really want this? Or do you just wish for it? The barrier is there to separate people that are just wishing for it from those who actually want it. From those who are willing to do whatever it takes to get themselves from where they've been to where they want to get to. Because guess what? When you see it, when you have that perception that I told you earlier, there are a couple of other people that have seen it too. Just seeing it doesn't solve the problem 100%, right? Just seeing that, oh, you could transform lives, there's a problem that you can solve, doesn't necessarily make you automatically to become that person who solves the problem. You still have to run the marathon. You still have to go through the test. You still have to go through barriers, right? And so you becoming that person is highly dependent on whether you're willing to do whatever it takes to break the barrier. And what is helpful is understanding that the barrier is not there to stop you. The barrier is not your enemy. The flame to the gold is not an enemy of the gold. No, the flame that you burn the gold in is not an enemy of the gold. It's there to refine you. And when you have that perception, it makes it easier for you, because next time you're going through doubts, you understand that I actually want this, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. It's not a joke. It's not. I'm not just wishing for it. I'm so willing to do whatever it takes. Okay. So what are the tools that you need? I've mentioned some earlier, right? So let's talk a bit more about the tools. One more is understanding, refining your sense of um, understanding what is happening part time, your sense of discernment, refining your sense of discernment. The Bible says, my people perish because they lack knowledge, right? So they don't know, they cannot discern. I want you to be like the children of Issachar who have the spirit of discernment. They know what's happening, they can perceive. Because if you don't have this discernment spirit, it's difficult. You can easily be deceived. So you need to understand what is happening. There are people that, they are looking for the cheap way. So, for example, there are lots of schemes that spring up and disguise themselves as the opportunity, right? Just click on this link and you make your first million. You don't have to work. You don't have to do anything. Just click on this link or just pay 50,000 naira and that is it. You are the next millionaire. These things will continue to pop up. They are there to distract you. But what helps you across this? The spirit of discernment. And how do you get discernment? You refine it over time by failing and failing and over again. By having knowledge, by reading wild. Like you have to gain knowledge to a point where you can, the next thing to deceive you comes, you can already perceive it, right? You can already connect the dots. I've seen this somewhere else before. I have read something like this before. I have seen this somewhere. I've heard someone talking about this, right? So over time, by reading books, by watching good movies, TV shows, you are able to sharpen your ability to discern, because these things will be there to draw you back. Of course, they are. They will always be there. So the first one is discerning, right? The second one is having the ability to be resilient. Resilient doesn't necessarily mean repeating something over and over again. It's about doing something, getting a result, and refining that process. So based on the result you got, even though you didn't win, you're able to get a result. And based on that result, you're able to pick out valuable lessons. And you're able to try again with those lessons. So you must be willing. If I tell you how many things I've built more than 7 products. Yes, I started with hardwares. I started, with just thinking about solutions and innovating. And when I built those stuff, I didn't really understand, about marketing, about selling, I just wanted to build stuff to solve problem. And I thought when I built the stuff, easily I'll just make money, right? I was naive. So I built, automated changeover switches. I built home regulatory systems, automated home regulatory systems. I built a couple of stuff, but I didn't understand what I needed to add to building to making money. As I kept building and I kept refining, and it got to a point I realized that you don't just build, you have to also market. Right? If you build something and people don't know about it, who buys? Who is that? I mean, you can't just be and say, oh, I'm very good at this. So when you build that thing, you have to actually sell it. Right? So for me to get to the point where I am today, I needed to understand that. But if I didn't start with something, I probably would not be where I am today. So you have to learn how to be resilient. Right? You have to learn that even though this one might not work, I know that by refining, by getting better, by taking it one step at a time, it eventually gets better. See, you're wasting time if you're not doing something. That's the only time you're wasting time, if you're not doing something. Do something. Because when you do that thing, you're at least one step ahead. You have at least tried one thing. Was it Thomas Edison who tried about 100 times before he invented the light bulb? It said something around those 100 times were not wasted. Every time he did one, he said, every time I tried a process and it did not work, I found out one more way of not doing that thing. Like he's able to learn that this particular way of doing it doesn't work. So the next time he will not try it. But you're not doing anything, well, you won't learn that. So one way to make progress is trying, starting from somewhere. See, you won't just move from where you are to where you want to get to. It's a journey, and that journey requires resilience, it requires sacrifice, it requires you trying and doing something and doing it over and over again and learning from what you have done and getting better at it. It doesn't just come. And so you are wasting time if you're not doing anything. Go and ask everybody that is successful today. They just had to do something. There's a 90 or 99% chance that what they did first wasn't the thing that they're doing today or that made them to be successful. There are people that built hundreds of businesses that failed. They are successful today, not because they did one business. Some people say, oh, one business could just be the one that transformed your life. It's possible. It's possible. But what are the chances? When that one business transforms your life or becomes a successful one, it is usually the experiences that you've gathered from the trial and errors. Right? So be resilient. Improve on what you've done previously. And the only way to improve on what you've done previously is to start now. Do something. The other one, the other tool is mentorship. I kind of want to emphasize this. I used to think I know it all. You don't know it all, my dear. You don't. There's a lot. There's a lot that people have experienced. If you can believe that you are heading somewhere, trust me, there's someone else out there who has probably done what you want to do, right? And it doesn't have to be just one mentor, because one mentor might not be good at every area of your life. You might have a mentor for relationship, a mentor for business, a mentor for education, a mentor for you name it, right? Getting a mentor is way, way, way better than just trying to figure everything out yourself. So get a mentor. And for you to get a mentor, you need to learn how to develop some skills, like skills of being mentorable. So if you look at it, it's more of refinement. The process is actually refining you, because when you learn that skill, you can apply it somewhere else in your life. When you're learning how to be mentored or learning to get a mentor, you also learn skills such as humility, right? Such as paying attention to detail, such as communication. And guess what? You might need these skills later on. There's a very high chance that you need these skills later on. Right? Get a mentor. It's very important. That's helped me so much. I can't begin to explain what this, mentorship has done to me, how it has helped me. Okay? And to finalize it, get a community. You can't do it alone. Be in a community of people that are doing what you want. These things might feel like, oh, it's not the drive, it's not the, yes, but there are people who are not as good as you are, but they are earning way higher than you are. There are people who are not as good as you are, but they are where you are not, you can't even be at. Not because they are brilliant than you, not because they are better than you, no, but because they have relationships, because they're in the community, because they know people. If you like, be the best. I'm not saying you shouldn't, because that's what gets you into the door, gets you the invitation in the first place, right? Be very good at what you do, but it doesn't stop there. The door you need to enter, the key to those doors are in the hands of people. Yes, the key to the doors you need to enter are in the hands of people. So learn how to build relationships. I was reading a book about the startup ecosystem in Nigeria. I can't remember exactly the name of the author now. He was talking about the deals that he made, the clients that he got. One thing I noticed was that he never mentioned that he had to send, you know, blind emails or just blind emailing people. No, almost every deal that he made, by the way, the person is a very well recognized person in the tech space in Nigerian business, tech business space. Almost every deal that he closed came from someone. It's from, oh, this is what I do. I have this thing that I'm building. And then the other person, oh, wow, so you're building this. I have someone who has done something like that before. Let me give you a call. Let me call the person and introduce you. When are you available? On Monday. Okay, fine. Let's meet so and so. Let's get a coffee or tea or something. And then they meet. And next thing you're hearing is, oh, wow, you got recommended by this person. Since you are recommended, I don't even have to do much work. That's a good one. So how much do you need? Okay, $1 million. All right, good. That's fine. We can start with $500,000, and that's it. The deal is done. But imagine if you had to start cold calling, cold emailing people. First, they don't trust you. They don't know who you are. You would have to do extra work to get to that point. You have to prove and convince. And most of the time, they are not willing to listen to you. Guess what? These people, see all these deals you see flying around, they don't just happen. You don't get the deals because you are not connected. The deal doesn't go to everybody. Forget I submitted a proposal. Forget. See, all those things are just formalities. It's good. The real deals that happens with relationships. If you're not on the table, if you don't know people, if you're not connected, it is difficult to get the deals that will transform your life. So start building relationships. They said that if you are among 5 billionaires or 4 billionaires, you are the fifth one. It is very true. Your net worth determines, see, the level of wealth that you want right? It gets to a point when you skip survival and wanting to buy an iPhone and wanting to buy the latest gadgets and actually move to being relevant. You cannot do without relationship. There's no success. There's nobody that became super successful, that became wealthy, that became free, right? Without relationships. If you don't get anything from this talk at all, or from this engagement at all, get this: you may never be able to get to where you want to get to without relationships, because it brings trust. When someone mentions your name on the table, people don't have to actually interview you sometimes, because, again, leverage. You're leveraging what? Other people's relationship, not just money this time. So let's recap everything. Almost done. First one is seeing the light. We're born into darkness. You didn't know what you want, but you wanted something. You want to drive. You want to break through barriers. You want to renegotiate your relevance. You want to do all of these things. The first thing is getting to see the light. Perceiving, you have to see. Because what you cannot see, you cannot get to. It's how far you can see. So see, right? When you begin to see, you need knowledge, right? You need to see. You need to watch TVs. You need to see movies. You need to be able to perceive where you need to get to, right? And then when you've done that, you need to break out of the cage. Because how do you get into relationships, for example, if you don't even have the money to put on the clothes that you need to attend those events? How do you start thinking of getting into relationships or building stuff if you don't even know what you're going to eat the next day? So you have to break out. And breaking out of the cage means that you have to do whatever it takes. It could be getting a job. It has nothing to do with your passion. It has nothing to do with shooting for the stars. The first thing is having breaking out of that cage that you're born into, right? When you break out, you start playing the game of from the vantage point. And I gave the analogy of fish and monkey. Do not try to go swim or compete in a swimming competition if you are not a fish. If you're a monkey, go for the competition that falls within your power, that you can influence, right? And when you do that, you build from a vantage point. You attack or dwell or build from a vantage point, from the things that you're good at. And then you have to understand that there will always be barriers, right? That gold must go through flames for it to be refined. That the barrier is not there to hold you down. Rather, it is there to ask you one question: whether you truly want this or you just wish for it. And that suffering or coming from a poor place or from a very low background doesn't mean that you are doomed. Rather, you could see from a different perspective, which is there to clean your taste bud, is there to sharpen your taste bud, right? And then you now need tools like discernment, knowing what to do part-time, knowing how to avoid things that will drag you down, relationships that will drag you down, schemes that will drag you down, discerning them, right? And then being resilient, right? Improving on your previous work by at least starting something first. because when you start, you're able to learn from it, right? And then getting mentorship, because it's very important, and building relationships, because you really cannot get anywhere good, anywhere better, anywhere people are talking about wealth or being relevant without actually having people. So I hope I've been able to share something. I hope you've been able to learn from this. Um, I think, um, I'll be bringing the talk to an end now. Hello, Gift. I don't know if you're there.
This was such a I don't know. I wish we did it during daytime. We would have just continued, until until we can exhaust everything you had intended to speak on. And this is quite valuable because it's not just a compilation of notes. These are just things that are coming from a place of experience. These are things that, and guys, I can't see your reaction. How was this session for you? I mean, from I have my notes here, right? And everything Liberty has spoken about. Well, first of all, honestly, I've not seen him talk about some of these things publicly before, and some of these things, some of them are things that I know that, are quite valuable, and I've seen them work over and over again. But the most important aspect of it for me is the fact that he's able to break it all down. When he started and the analysis, and it's able to break all of this down, helping you see that the results that you've not accomplished, could it be that you were not seeing the things that you were supposed to see correctly? Could it be that you did not have the right perception to from your vantage point? Could it be that you were not maximizing the relationships? Because these things are all connected together. So when you begin to apply them, someone was saying that when you get information, it is very important that you get to arrange them so that you know how to apply them. And these things are all linked. That the last point that he was talking about, which is the place of relationship, before after he spoke about mentors, I realized that some of the greatest opportunities now, there are certain things you will not be able to say, publicly, but this is a closed, exclusive meeting for MasterVerse. Some of the greatest opportunities I've had in my experience, in my journey, I wouldn't say that they were based on merit. Some of these greatest opportunities were based on relationships, right? Some of the highest clients I've ever had to work with, some of the people that are all placed, highly placed in the society that I have access to, were all from a place of relationship. Someone just mentions your name, someone just say, oh, this my guy, he can do that. This person, he can do this. Now, you don't know the importance of, because some people, so they go to conferences, and the moment they're able to relate with someone, they think that some of those relationships are for immediate enjoyment. But you don't understand that some of the relationships that you have today are actually designed for where you need to be tomorrow. And this was so good. This was so good. Really impactful. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much, Liberty, for not withholding back these things that you were sharing today. And um, I want to say thank you so much for taking out the time, to show up for this meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking out the time to show up for this meeting. And we're going to leave the video here, even though we're going to have to do a little bit of, but we're going to leave the video on here. And you can always come back, re-listen to them, apply these principles in your life. You can always share the link with someone, and I'm sure that they would really find this valuable. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Liberty. Thank you for taking the time out to come here on here and share this value with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gift. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, we're going to be calling it a night here. And of course, don't forget that all the updates, we're sharing the updates in our community on Telegram. And most importantly, your emails. That's the first place you would get any updates that we have. Your emails, very important. If you're not part of the Telegram community, it's right there in your email. The link to join them is right there in your email. We sent it out earlier yesterday. So please do check. And of course, enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much.